Governor, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Good to be with you.
And first time in a t-shirt. So
I think you're the only guy who can get me in a damn t-shirt out of my suit and tie.
Yeah.
But, you know, considering where we are, it seems appropriate.
All right, so we'll talk more about that in a second. But let's start with the big top line, most important headline of the week, which is a $76 billion surplus in California. There were some estimates that there was going to be a $54 billion deficit last year.
Yeah.
How does that happen? How do you go from $54 billion deficit to $76 billion surplus?
It's the resiliency of an economy. I mean, you know, some people said, why do you talk about California roaring back? I said that at Dodger Stadium. My State of the State, I said, watch. The state's not going to come back. It's going to come roaring back. And you see that not just in terms of this historic, and when I say historic, not just by California standards, by American standards, surplus, $76 billion surplus, but also in terms of the job creation. You saw the February numbers, 41% of America's jobs came out of California, 275,000 in the last 2 months. While there may be a little bit of slowdown in the last 30 days, I think that's a temporary blip. The state's really turning a corner.
Well, and a big part of it also is that wealthy people made a lot of money last year,
that's right,
in California, and that drives a lot of the California tax base. Yep. There's no question that there are poor people in this state that need a lot of help. But should some of those folks that are paying the highest taxes in the country, should they get some of that money back?
Well, they should get the finest education system in the world. And they should get a UC system and a CSU system that are conveyor belts for talent. And we're investing historic amounts of money in those institutions. They should have clean roads and streets. They should have outstanding K-12 public education. They should have clean air, clean water. And they should be thanked for their investments in this state. And they should have an environment where they're able to, you know, where California is equivalent to Cape Canaveral in the 60s, where you can come with a dream and an idea and a startup and go bold and big. And 94 IPOs have proven that just this year so far. We're seeing that in the venture capital numbers. We're seeing that in the economic output. So that's what those folks deserve, and we're grateful for the incredible success we've seen with the top 1% that allows us to make these kind of investments.
So we're not looking, it sounds like, at a tax rebate for the folks in the upper income level.
Well, we're doing a tax rebate to the people that have been most impacted by this pandemic, and that seems just the right thing to do. And that's an historic first as well, $12 billion tax rebate. It's the largest in the nation. There's never been a state that's offered a $12 billion tax rebate to 78% of tax filers. So we're doing that. Again, the top 1% have done extraordinarily well.
Right.
Everybody else has struggled in this pandemic, and we have to be mindful of that, and that's what this middle class tax rebate's about.
So let's talk about why we are standing right here. You're announcing on this day $1.5 billion for beautification to clean up many of the dirty streets in California. Also going to be helping to finance art and local artists as well. But let's talk about the underlying problem that leads to this. How do you know that once you clean this up, the problem just doesn't come back again the next day?
Yeah, it's whack-a-mole, but you got to keep at it. You got to commit yourself, not just be passively interested episodically in these kind of cleanup efforts. Look, I've been a mayor. I've seen these things before. Once the cameras go, the place is not even cleaned up that you actually came to in the first place. So look, we're mindful of that, and that's why we're putting a multi-year plan out there. That's why we're taking originally a $100 million budget, and we're converting it to $1.5 billion. It's beautification grants, it's arts and culture grants, and it's litter and cleanup grants. So the idea is to repurpose a lot of these sites so they don't go back to their original form, but it's also a commitment in the state to do something we should have been doing decades ago. I've been here 28 months, and that's clean the damn place up. The state's too dirty. The encampments, the underpasses, the overpasses, the thoroughfares, the entrances and exits to our freeway where we are right now, we can clean these things up. We just needed the resources and a plan. We've got both now.
And of course, one of the big reasons why we do see so much of this trash is the homeless encampments that are nearby, literally steps from where we're standing right now. You announced a $12 billion plan to combat homelessness, which is a historic plan that no state has ever seen.
No.
But I want to ask you about, you know, the problem that we talk to so many homeless people and they say they don't want the housing.
Yeah, I don't buy that. And I say that with, you're right. We can always find those folks that are service resistant.
Right.
But I've been a practitioner of this for years and years and years. I've met people that were service resistant the first 20 times. We found out, you know what? The reason they're service resistant is we found out the last place they were at didn't take their dog, or wouldn't take a partner, or because they're not completely clean and sober, it required them to go to a 12-step program before they got into that. You got to meet people where they are, and that's what this portfolio offers us the opportunity to meet people across the spectrum where they are: mental health, behavioral health, substance abuse programs, housing of all types, not just for single adults that are out there in encampments, but also families, children, and the like. And so that's the approach we're taking.
But do you think, though, that some law enforcement or other officials should have more power if somebody is clearly struggling with mental health issues, clearly struggling with addiction, to force them to get treatment? That's something that some people in law enforcement have complained about, but they don't have the power to do that.
That's why I promoted and signed a number of bills in the legislature recently to increase the number of conservatorships, to empower more counties under Laura's law. We actually now made that an opt-out, not an opt-in for counties. When I came into office 2 years ago, that was an opt-in, so we're providing those tools and supports. But here's what's been missing. What's on the other side of that besides enforcement? Where's the unit? Where's the boarding care home? Where is the intensive services? Someone has a roof over their head, they may end up right back out on the streets a day or two or an hour later. And so that's the approach we're taking. But yeah, there's got to be more. You want accountability? Got to be more accountability on the streets. Absolutely. We create opportunity, but we believe in responsibility. We clean these sites up. We give you choice and opportunity. We meet you where they are at a certain point, enough. Because the streets are for everybody. They're not just for some people. And I can't take it anymore. I don't like what's happening on the streets of California any more than anybody else. And mayors, city council members, city administration also have a profound role to play. They're the tip of the spear, and we all need to be held to account. Everybody needs to be held accountable. And with this budget, there's no more excuses. No more excuses.
And also a big part of this budget is education, one of the biggest parts of the California budget writ large. Is there any reason that all public schools in California should not be in person in the fall?
On midnight, June 30th, it's a mandate that every single school open full-time in-person instruction. Those that are open year-round, those that have summer programs, those that have extended learning, that's the expectation coming in the fall. That's the expectation, but here's the difference. It's not just rhetorical. It's statutory, and it's going to be backed up with historic investments into K-12 education for health and safety to address those remaining concerns legitimately teachers have as well as parents.
Another big issue that we've seen this year is what happened with the EDD, the unemployment insurance, $30 billion in fraud.
Yep.
How does that happen, and how can we stop that?
Well, those are antiquated systems that go back half a century, and that was replicated in every state in the union. Had those same issues. What was different in California is we were the first state to do an audit, to bring it to light and actually stop last August a lot of the fraud, and we're working closely with the Biden administration on the next round of stimulus to make sure this doesn't happen again. It happened because there was no national coordinated strategy on not UI, unemployment insurance, but the new PUA program, and they didn't come in with the accountability measures nationwide in a system that was designed for a world that no longer exists with PUA. Unfortunately, was not able to capture that. Here's the difference. Not only did we capture that last August and put in an ID.me program, now we're working with the Biden administration, and we have a budget we'll announce on Friday that specifically lays out millions and millions of dollars to completely modernize that system so the next person that's governor never has to deal with it again.
Let me ask you a question that's a criticism of this and just give you a chance to respond. There are people that are saying these checks that are going out as part of this stimulus is what they call a recall rebate. And they say you're trying to buy votes and put out checks that way. What's your response to that?
I mean, we did this in January. We announced this in January before the recall was even on the radar, and people weren't even talking about it. So the fact is, that's just political theater and nonsense. What I also find interesting about the observation is no one's criticizing an historic statewide rebate to quite literally 2/3 of Californians, 78% of taxpayers. And if they got a better idea on a rebate, if they have it, I'm looking forward to being all ears in the legislative process.
So John Cox is campaigning with a bear and says that his nickname is Beast. What's your spirit animal?
Right now, my spirit animal is, I don't know, it's reflected, I think, in the encampment and the cleanups now. I don't know what that represents. I'll have to sort of reflect on it. But, we're proud of bears in California. Just want to treat them with love and respect.
But just, I mean, on a serious note, just as a guy, and I know the political answer is like, I'm not thinking about it. But as a man, you've got a guy that you ran against, that you beat by 24 points. He comes back, is calling you a pretty boy who's too beautiful to be governor, and is saying that he's bringing a bear around.
Look at me now, John. Look at me now.
Well, I mean, what's your response to that? Honestly, what do you think about that?
I'm not making this up. I know you're absolutely right. We're prone to sort of the pat political response, which is I'm focusing on other things. I'm literally focused on other things. I paid no attention to any of that. I didn't watch it. I don't, it's performance. That's not my focus. That's a side, that's something else. This is what matters. Encampments, cleaning the streets, homelessness, housing, affordability, dealing with damn roads and traffic. Seriously, if I don't attend to that, all the rest of that just sucks you into a sideshow of triviality and irrelevance, and that's just not my focus.
So we should expect not circus animals coming for the next appearance.
We'll see what the Act 2 is on that side of it.
2020, 2021 is a year that really changed a lot of people. Changed their perceptions of themselves, changed their perceptions of this world.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering for you and for your family, how did this last year change you?
No, I mean, I just think we're discovering an inner resiliency and a grit. I had this weekend, our Mother's Day was in the emergency room where my 5-year-old literally snapped. It wasn't a fracture, literally snapped his collarbone. And watching him 2 hours later up and running around with a snapped collarbone, all we thought about was what a remarkable year this has been, and what a remarkable year it's been looking it through the eyes of young children. And we've got 4 young children under the age of 11, and seeing their resiliency and their spirit, and we're trying to reflect that, and we're trying to model that. And as governor and the first partner herself, we're trying to model that as well across the state. And I just want folks to know, the best is yet to come. Sky's the limit for California, and I mean that. And I think this budget surplus is reflective of that. The economic opportunities that still persist in the state are second to none. And I just think, boy, those that talk about California's best days behind it, they're going to rue the day this state is roaring back.
Well, and speaking of that, June 15th, big deal. Paint a picture. What does that look like, June 15th?
Well, we're right now at 1% positivity. It's been the lowest in the nation. It's been that way for almost 2.5, 3 weeks. We're seeing this blueprint where the vast majority of counties are in orange and yellow, and we're going to move beyond the blueprint on the 15th of June. So just in a number of weeks, and that world looks a lot like the world we entered into before the pandemic. We're not wearing face coverings. We're not restricted in any way, shape, or form of doing the old things that we used to do, save huge, large-scale indoor convention events like that where we'll use our common sense. But look, our vaccine numbers are still holding. 533,000 shots in the last 48 hours. We're at 32, almost 33 million. We can keep that going. We're going to hear a lot of horns of enthusiasm because we'll get out the other side.
And are we looking at masks after June 15th?
No, only in those settings that are indoor, only in those massively large settings where people from around the world, not just around the country, are convening, and when people are mixing in real dense spaces. Otherwise, we'll make guidance recommendations, but no mandates and no restrictions in businesses large and small.
What are you most looking forward to, or your family most looking forward to, post June 15th?
Well, I just being able to walk down the streets again and taking deep breaths, hugging people, seeing strangers. I think honestly for me, I used to love, maybe other people are like this, maybe they're not, but there's nothing I enjoyed more than sitting outside, having a cup of coffee on a weekend, have your baseball hat on and reading the paper, or just relaxing and then watching other people. Honestly, there's that serendipity of just watching people, strangers, and just seeing the world through a different set of eyes. Honestly, that for me is comforting, relaxing. That's a sense for me of normalcy, to see community again, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, thank you. I just want to say we just last week had our 3-year anniversary of The Issue Is, and you were our first guest on our first show, and you've been our most frequent guest in between. So
you haven't canceled me yet, huh?
We don't believe in cancel culture here.
That's right. Nor do I.
Yeah, Governor, thank you. Really appreciate these conversations, and nice to see you in a t-shirt.
Good.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. All right.